Hey, you're listening to Marketing Out Loud, a daily podcast where I share advice, stories, and insights to help you build a thriving consulting or professional services practice. To subscribe to the show, head over to marketingoutloud.fm.
I think one of the toughest parts about being a business owner is managing your own expectations. I mean, managing expectations overall is hard across the board for yourself, your team, your clients, but managing your own expectations is, I think, the hardest part. Because we all dream of the overnight success, right? We all aspire to be that overnight success. And it doesn't help that our culture celebrates people, companies, businesses that grow really, really fast. That whole startup culture of going from like $0 to $100 million in like 3 years, right? These are things that we celebrate. We read articles about these kinds of businesses. And of course, people like to brag, however true those numbers might be, but people like to brag about the results that they're getting and how fast they got those results. I mean, every time I go on a webinar with some kind of a marketer, many times a lot of my competitors, and they're talking about, they're selling some kind of a tactic ultimately. They're always selling tactics. No one's ever selling strategy. They're selling some kind of a tactic. And when they go into their story, their kind of hero's journey, so to speak, it's always like, when I started out, I did $50,000 in my first year, and then I did, $100,000 in my second year, and I did $300,000 in my third year, and then $500,000. And it's like every year they're like doubling, right? It's like this exponential growth. And I'm thinking to myself, well, I don't have a story like that. I mean, the truth is that when I first started, and I don't talk about this a lot, but I don't shy away from it either. The truth is, when I first started, my goal was to replace my income. I used to be director of marketing for a consulting firm. I left that firm, and my immediate goal was I wanted to replace my income. So I went out and I just started getting clients, and I did replace my income pretty quickly, but then I plateaued because this is a little bit off topic, but I think part of it was a mindset issue. I believed I was worth a certain amount, and that amount was pegged by my previous salary. So I had a number in mind that I was worth, and my goal was through self-employment, through my business, my consulting practice, I wanted to get to that number. When I got to that number, I didn't really know what to do anymore because I had met whatever my beliefs were of my worth. I'd achieved that goal, so I didn't really know what else to do. And so I stayed at that level for probably 2 to 3 years at the same number. It didn't really grow a whole lot. Some clients left, I got some new clients, so there were changes in the business, but overall revenue pretty much flatlined. And I don't have a story like that. I don't have I did 50, then 100, then 300, then 500. Like, that's not my story at all. The truth is it flatlined for the first few years until I finally hit a point where I realized that I needed to grow the business and that it was very risky to maintain the level that I was working at and to keep working with the same clients over and over and over again. I realized how risky that was, and I realized that to grow the business, I'd have to rebuild the business model from the ground up, and then that's what set me on the path that's ultimately taken me to where I am today in the current iteration of my business. But the point I'm trying to make is it was not overnight by any means. I think I'm in year, I don't know, I always lose track. It's either year 4 or 5 of the business. I'm not entirely sure, probably year 5. So, hardly an overnight success. And I wouldn't even call myself a success yet. I mean, what is success? I don't really know what that means. But, I definitely didn't get to where I am. Whether that's success or not is a subjective question. But wherever I am today, and I'm very grateful for where I am today, don't get me wrong, I wouldn't call it overnight. It's been 4 or 5 years in the making. And I think that's pretty typical. I don't think it's normal to go from $0 to $500,000 in a year or 2 years. I don't think that really happens very often. I think for most normal people, growth is gradual. Growth is progressive. Growth, it's putting one foot in front of the other over and over and over again. And I realize this more and more as the months and the years go by, that the more you play the long game, the better off you're going to be. And the more that you play the short game and you try to hack growth and you try to just put a rocket on your growth, the more you make bad decisions, because your decisions are driven by short-term gain and not building a lasting business for the long haul. So, think about managing your expectations. Like, where do you want to be by the end of this year? Where do you want to be by the end of next year? And set yourself some reasonable goals, reasonable expectations. I'm not saying shortchange yourself. By all means, be aggressive. I'm all for being aggressive. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is, don't set unrealistic expectations for yourself based on what other people may or may not be doing, based on what other people say that they're doing, and think that you've got to fit some kind of a mold. You don't have to fit any mold. The only mold that you've got to fit is the one that makes sense for you. So set your expectations, be realistic, be honest, be real. And in my mind, as long as you're growing, as long as you are making progress, as long as you're doing the uncomfortable things required to grow a business, then that's all the growth you can really ask for.
Hey, thanks for listening. Do me a favor, if you like what you hear, go on iTunes and leave us a rating and a review because it helps more people discover the show. Thanks so much.